Hey Joelle, I really like your caricature. Before we look at the background and the text, I just wanted to reiterate a few things from last week. I'm not sure if you read my feedback or not, but you need layer masks in there, and what layer masks look like. These are Christie's, but these are what the layer masks look like. They're what we did in the first assignment last week. And so note if I that's that little piece there, but note if I turn off the layer mask, I'm going to disable it. You can see all the background. So that's why it's so important to use layer masks because they're non-destructive. So let's say your client wants to, wants you to go back and change something. You can easily go back and change it because you haven't deleted the information. It's still there in the mask. So again, for example, here's this one. You can see the background there. So unfortunately, you're going to continue to lose points because you're not using the layer mask. It's kind of a big part of the assignment, and also it's important for your portfolio because this is the way it's done in the standard way it's done in the design industry. So you want this to be a portfolio piece. So that's really important. Just the other things I mentioned from last time is really need to clean up the selections, but again, I would go in and make some layer masks and really clean these up. You really do want to create a portfolio piece since you're putting in all this work. So, so the next thing, I like the concept of this background, but I don't really understand it. It looks, it's hard to read. It looks just kind of like a geometric design. I'm going to first put these all in this folder here so I can move them around. And so the way you do that, you just click this folder icon, and then they're all here. So if I turn those off, I can see what's going on here. I think it's supposed to be a corner, but it's hard to see because there isn't enough shading, or in the use of perspective isn't working well enough for that to be discernible. So you might want to think of looking for other backgrounds, or just add something else. There's also a lot of negative space in here that needs to be utilized. Another thing you could do with your caricature is you could move it off center. Centering is considered pretty arbitrary, so you don't want to just center things unless there's a reason. Another thing you could do is you could rotate this a little bit so it looks more, it's going to have some more movement. I'd probably make it a little bit smaller. And another thing you could do is you could make or find blades that look like they're slightly moving. And if you look at one of those examples I posted earlier, this student here, he created these little flying chairs, but notice how he gave these motion blurs, so they kind of look like they're moving. And also this has got a little bit of a blur, so it kind of indicates movement. And keep in mind the name is Fantasia Furniture Fairy, and be sure to really note the spelling. You don't want to, you don't want to miss points for not taking care of some of those details. There's ways to make the fan look like it's blurry. You could go in and you could select part of it. I'm just going to do this really kind of down and dirty here, but so let's say you want to, we're just on that layer, you want to select part of it. Let's see, I'm just going to do like something pretty sloppy, and I'm on that layer. So then you go into the filters and go to blur, and there's different kinds of blurs. There's a spin blur, path blur. Let's see where the other ones are. There's a whole bunch of different blur ones. I'm going to look at the filter gallery and see what some of these are. Stretch, stylize, texture, distort, brush strokes. Again, looking for the blur ones. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, for some reason they're not in this one here. So I'm going to cancel it. Because they're not in the blur gallery, but there is some blurs up in, oh, here it is. Well, these are, you can use this. So let's look at the spin blur. and just see what it looks like. You know, some of these got, oh, this is all pretty advanced here, but you can control the angles and you could really, you know, change it. So you probably can't see it, unfortunately. It's just really hard to see. Shoot. Do a path blur. So anyway, you might want to think of using some of these. I mean, that kind of, yeah, see, I don't, yeah, unfortunately, the motion effects aren't showing up here. So, but anyway, that's just some things to look at to make these look a little bit more animated. So just a few things to do. Be sure to get the name correct. I would also suggest going to, you know, dafont.com. I think I mentioned this before. And there's so many cool, you know, cool fonts here. So you could go into old school. You could go into curly. And again, there's so many different fonts you can download, and they really do personalize your, that's a pretty cool one. And if you notice here, there's 18 pages of just fonts in this one little area. So I would suggest having a look at some of these fonts and installing them. It'll help your design quite a bit. So actually, I would probably even move this over more like this and probably rotate it even more. But just so it looks like it's moving a little bit because everything's so centered. Okay, so the main thing is the layer masks need to get the spelling and the typography correct because it is for a client. I don't understand this beam thing, and I would look for another, I would look for more backgrounds or add something to this background. You also need to do your best to cite these. You shouldn't use images if you can't cite them. Just because you couldn't use this as a portfolio piece if you didn't have the images cited, because the design world takes very seriously using other people's images without giving credit. So okay, so let me know if you have any questions. You can always repost this for more points. Anyway, so I hope you found this useful, and yeah, I'd love to see a revision.